Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad to see you here today. We are finally there. We're finally to the point where we're about to write our spooky story. I'm so excited to hear what you're going to write. Couple of rules first. First, since we're in elementary school, we need to keep it elementary school appropriate. That means it can't be gory, bloody, violent. It can be spooky. And sometimes that's even scarier and more hair raising than something that is violent. I'm going to stay away from violence. If a kindergartner happened upon our story, they would have to be okay if they were able to read it. All right, the other thing is we're staying away from any kind of video games, any stories that have already been created. This gets to be completely from your imagination. With imaginary characters that nobody has ever introduced before. When you start writing this, if you look at the wave, that's kind of our roadmap for how a spooky story goes, actually, any story. And your pre-write is going to be your map of your story. It's going to help you organize and get ideas in your brain. So make sure you use this wisely. Shouldn't take you forever to do, but you want a lot of good information in here. So the setting, if you look at the wave, the setting is kind of the bottom of that wave. And it's going to include your characters, and it's going to tell where and when your story takes place. It's not just going to include your characters, though. It's going to include your characters in such a way that your reader can infer your character's character traits. Well, I feel like I just said characters a million times. So in the little box, you want to write who your characters are and the character traits you're going to want to portray. So you're going to want to write it so that you're showing, not telling. And the same goes for when and where. Tell us when and where your story is going to be taking place, and use some descriptive words in that box that are going to help you show, not tell. Now, the rising action, that's the fun part. That's where the story really gets going. And that is the part that we liken to a roller coaster where you're going click, 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 and you're getting scared and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I should turn around. This is terrible. That's what's going to be happening during this point. So I left you 3 boxes to write about your rising action. Now, you might need to add a whole nother slide and give me a couple more boxes. 3 is the minimum, or maybe you can just split those boxes if you have more actions that are going to be happening. Now, remember, we need to keep this more seed or slice, watermelon seed or watermelon slice sized. Don't stay away from the whole watermelon. You guys will remember what I'm talking about from our last story. Okay, so the rising action, as you start putting that down, you're going to be thinking, how can I use descriptive words and word choice? How can I use similes to have my reader feel that trepidation, that little bit of worry, and that click, click, click up the roller coaster. Now, as you get going on this, you might figure out that you can do some foreshadowing, especially once you go up to the top of that wave. That's your climax, the scariest moment. You can go backwards and think, where can I foreshadow in my rising action to get to that scariest moment? Okay, now we're to the second half of your story. Here is your climax, your scariest moment. This would be a great place to practice a series of short sentences and maybe an ellipsis. The dot, dot, dot. Those are great ways to build suspense. Now, your falling action, if you go back to the other wave picture, the falling action is relatively short. That's where you're starting to breathe again. Your reader can breathe. Your reader knows it's going to be okay. And then your happy or funny ending. So, a great technique for spooky stories is to end it in a happy or funny way. So you might be scared because you're in the woods and you keep hearing the sound and you're imagining it's going to be something big and horrible, and things are leading the reader to believe it's going to be like a Bigfoot, or it's going to be, a Yeti, and it's a scary, violent Yeti. And then you have your climax happen, and then at the end, when you wrap it up, a little cute bunny hops out of the woods. Don't do that, but you get the idea. A trick ending is what we're looking for. And then, of course, my author's tip when writing a spooky story: don't forget your ways to build suspense. A series of short sentences, an ellipsis, detailed description, a simile, and foreshadowing. It doesn't say it in here, but you have to have dialogue because this is a story. There shouldn't just be dialogue in one section. Dialogue should be throughout your whole story. And of course, it has to be school appropriate. I am so excited for this. I can hardly wait to read your plans. All right, get started. Have fun.